In a university astronomy class, the professor explained that seasons are caused by the tilt of the Earth's axis. A girl raised her hand and argued with him. She insisted that summer is warmer because the Earth is physically closer to the sun during that time. The professor patiently re-explained the concept of the axial tilt using diagrams. She just shook her head and said, "That makes no sense. Closer is hotter. It's simple logic. I learned that in high school." She refused to believe otherwise for the entire semester. I was a tour guide at the Anne Frank House in Amsterdam. An American family was on my tour, and after we had gone through the secret annex, the father pulled me aside. He asked in a hushed, serious tone, "So, what was the author's inspiration for all this?" "It's an amazing work of fiction, so detailed." "Did she base the characters on real people?" I had to take a deep breath and explain that Anne Frank was a real person. The diary was real and the events were real. He looked genuinely shocked, then said, "Wow, that's crazy. They should make a book about that." My co-worker, who has a 4-year college degree, was planning a trip to Europe. She showed me her itinerary, which had her flying into London, then taking a day trip by train to see the pyramids in Egypt. I stared at her, thinking she was joking. She was not. She thought Egypt was a neighboring country to England, like France. When I pulled up a map to show her the entire Mediterranean Sea and African continent in between, she got defensive and said, "Well, the map makes it look close. How was I supposed to know?" I worked in a bookstore when a man came in asking for a biography of Martin Luther. I took him to the history section. He looked at the books about the Protestant Reformation and got angry. "No, not this guy. I mean the American one, Martin Luther King Jr." I politely explained that Martin Luther and Martin Luther King Jr. were two different historical figures. He slammed the book down and said, "That's a lie. They just added the King Jr. a part later to make him sound more important. You people are trying to rewrite history." An American tourist in Kyoto, Japan, was trying to pay for a souvenir with a toy 20 note. The shopkeeper politely refused, explaining they only accept Japanese yen. The tourist got louder, saying, "It's European money. It's worth more than your money. Just take it." And another tourist tried to explain that Japan is not in Europe and doesn't use the euro. The American woman replied, "But it's all foreign, isn't it? What's the difference? This is just bad customer service." She then stormed out, leaving the money on the counter. A friend of mine genuinely believed that if you dig a hole deep enough in his backyard in Ohio, you will eventually reach China. He wasn't a child, he was 28. We tried to explain the concept of a spherical Earth, gravity, and the molten core. He just laughed and said, "Nah, that's just what they teach you. Everyone knows China is on the other side directly underneath us. It's common sense." He was planning to rent an excavator to prove his point before his wife stopped him. During a company meeting, our boss mentioned that our new client was based in Portugal. My American manager, a man in his 50s, chimed in, "Great. But my high school Spanish should come in handy then." Our Portuguese colleague gently corrected him. "We speak Portuguese work in Portugal." Our manager replied with a dismissive wave of his hand, "Spanish-Portuguese. It's basically the same dialect. They'll understand me just fine." The colleague just stared at him in disbelief. I was at a pub in Sydney, Australia, with an American, and I had just met. He was complaining about the prices. "Everything is so expensive here. A beer costs $10. I explained that it was, 10 Australian dollars, which was about $7. He looked at me completely baffled and said, "What do you mean, a dollar is a dollar? Are you telling me your money is fake or something?" I spent the next 10 minutes trying to explain exchange rates to a grown man. A woman on a flight to Rome was very concerned. She asked the flight attendant, "I heard that in Italy you all still use Roman numerals for everything. How am I supposed to read the prices or my hotel room number?" The flight attendant, trying not to laugh, assured her that Italy uses the same Arabic numerals as the rest of the world. The passenger seemed relieved, but then added, "Good, because I never understood what XO was supposed to be. My roommate in college was convinced that vegetarians secretly ate meat because you can't get protein from plants. She argued that protein was an animal chemical and that things like beans and tofu were just plant-shaped water. She had failed biology twice, but insisted her gut feeling was more accurate than science textbooks. She would often try to sneak bacon into my salads to save me from protein deficiency. An American tourist at the Vatican asked a Swiss guard, "Excuse me, can you tell me what time the Pope does his little magic show?" The guard, stone-faced, replied, "Mom, are you referring to the papal mass?" She said, "Yeah, that thing where he turns the cracker into a guy's body." "What time is the show?" The guard just pointed towards St. Peter's Basilica and walked away without another word. I had a co-worker who thought that every country in the world had a president who was basically like our president but for their country. When the Queen of England died, he was genuinely confused. He asked, "So, who is the president of England now? Did they vote for Charles Ga? I don't remember seeing that on the news." We had to explain the concept of a constitutional monarchy to him, and he just said it sounded inefficient and old-fashioned. While visiting a beautiful ancient cathedral in Spain, I overheard an American teenager tell her mom, "This is cool, but it's kind of a rip-off of the church at, say, Disneyland. They even copied the stained glass windows." Her mother nodded and added, "This is better. It has air conditioning." They were standing in the middle of the 13th century Burgos Cathedral. A guy I worked with was trying to get a passport for the first time. He was complaining about the process. "I don't see why I need to prove I'm a citizen. I was born here. My birth certificate should be my passport." He then added, "Besides, I'm only going to Mexico. That's basically South America, and whereas we own that, right, Monroe Doctrine." He had conflated a 19th century foreign policy doctrine with direct ownership of 2 continents. An American student in my international finance class in London was furious about learning about currencies other than the USD. He said, "Why do we have to learn about the yen and the euro? The Chinese dollar is the world's reserve currency. Everyone else should just learn our system. This is a waste of time." He genuinely believed that all international business was and should be conducted exclusively in US dollars. I was on a bus in Vancouver, Canada, when an American tourist loudly complained to his wife, "I can't believe they put French on all the signs here. This is North America. We speak English." "It's disrespectful to the tourists," his wife added. "They're probably just trying to be fancy." They were in a country with 2 official languages, one of which is French. My aunt believes that wind turbines are causing global warming because they use up all the wind. Her logic is that the wind is supposed to blow the heat away, but the turbines are catching it all, which makes the planet hotter. She also thinks they are making the Earth spin slower. She saw it in a Facebook post and now shares it as a scientific fact at every family gathering. A customer at the tech support desk I worked at was angry because his new laptop, which he bought in the US, came with a charger that didn't fit the outlets in his hotel in town. Germany. He said this is a defective product. A travel laptop should come with a plug that works everywhere. America sets the standard, so all countries should be using our plugs. This is a scam. An American couple at a cafe in Vienna. Vienna, Austria, were trying to order. The man very slowly and loudly said to the waiter, "Do you have any tall kangaroos?" The waiter was confused. The man's wife explained, "We're in Austria, honey. We want to try the local food." They had confused Austria with Australia and were dead serious about wanting to eat kangaroo for lunch. A girl in my literature class thought that William Shakespeare was a made-up person, like a brand name. She believed that a secret committee of old writers wrote all the plays and poems and just put the name Shakespeare on them to sell more books? She said her evidence was that no single person could possibly be that smart or write that much. I had to explain to a 32-year-old man that the PA on his keyboard did not stand for Pennsylvania. He was trying to write a report and was getting frustrated that every time he tried to type the abbreviation for the state, his computer would just pause the music he was listening to. He thought his keyboard was specifically programmed to dislike his home state. An American tourist at Stonehenge asked the guide, "So this is obviously a replica." "Right. Where do they keep the real one?" The guide explained that this was the real 5,000-year-old monument. The tourist scoffed and said, "No way. You can't just leave something that old outside in the rain. In America, we'd have it in a climate-controlled museum. This is just irresponsible." My former boss was convinced that the moon landing was faked. His proof: if we really went to the moon in 1969, how come we haven't built any condos or a Starbucks there yet? It's been over 50 years. It's just not a good business model to go there once and then never go back. He believed it was all a Hollywood production to win the Cold War. A woman I went to college with thought that organic food meant it was made with organs. She refused to buy anything with the organic label because she was a vegetarian and thought it contained ground-up animal parts. She was studying to be a nutritionist. Overheard at a hotel in Hawaii, a tourist was complaining at the front desk that her GPS wasn't working. "It keeps telling me to drive into the ocean to get back to California." "Why would you sell a map that's broken?" The receptionist had to gently explain that Hawaii is a chain of islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and you cannot in fact drive there from the mainland. An American on a business trip to India was shocked and appalled that there were cows wandering the streets. He told our Indian colleague, "This is so unsanitary and unprofessional. Why don't you guys just eat them in Texas? A cow that big would be a dozen steaks by now. It's a complete waste of resources." He could not comprehend the cultural and religious significance. A guy on a first date told me he was a history buff. He then proceeded to tell me that the American Civil War was fought to free the pyramids from the British. I think he somehow combined the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, and ancient Egypt into a single nonsensical event. I did not go on a second date. My roommate was trying to cook pasta, and the instructions said to boil the water. He put a pot of water in the hot microwave for 10 minutes, then poured the dry pasta into the hot water and served it. When I asked him why it was crunchy, he said, "I don't know. I boiled the water just like it said. This pasta is broken." He did not own a stove because he thought microwaves did the same thing but faster. An American tourist in Iceland was looking at the northern lights. He turned to his friend and said, "It's beautiful, but it's a bit unprofessional. They should really schedule it to happen earlier, like at 8:00 p.m. Staying up this late is messing with my sleep schedule." To think the aurora was a man-made light show put on for tourists. A woman in my office was confused about her heritage. She said, "My DNA test said I'm 10% Italian, but I've never even been to the Viti Olive Garden." She thought the restaurant chain was the official embassy or cultural center of Italy in the United States. I was working at a call center for a tiny Canadian company. An American called in, furious that he had to make press 1 for English. He yelled, "This is an outrage. This is North America. English should be the default. I shouldn't have to choose it. I'm going to report you to the president." I tried to explain it was a Canadian company, which only made him angrier. A student in my art history class during a lecture on Vincent van Gogh asked, if he was so poor that he couldn't afford food, why didn't he just sell one of his paintings? The professor tried to explain the concept of an artist not being famous or valued until after their death, but the student just couldn't grasp it. But they're worth millions now. She kept repeating. My neighbor believes that squirrels are not real animals. He thinks they are government-installed cameras, designed to spy on people. His evidence is that you never see a baby squirrel and they move too fast and jerky like a robot. He spends his weekends trying to catch one to dismantle it and expose the truth. An American tourist at the Great Wall of China asked the guide, "How long did it take the bus Mexicans or to build this?" The guide, basically confused, said, "The Chinese built the wall." The tourist replied, "Oh, I thought Trump hired the Mexicans to build all the Great Walls." My mistake. A guy I knew was trying to lose weight. He told me he was on a new diet where he only ate negative-calorie foods. His list included celery, lettuce, and a double cheeseburger. His reasoning for the burger was, "It makes me so happy that the white happiness burns off all the calories, and then some." It's basic emotional science. A woman at a farmer's market was arguing with a vendor because his sign said, "Local honey." She insisted that all honey comes from mice or bees, not from a location. "Bees are insects, not a town," she shouted. "You can't call it local unless it was made by people who live here. This is false advertising." My cousin was adamant that World War I was a sequel to World War II. His logic was that you always make the sequel better, so you call it Part 2. Then if you make a prequel, you call it Part 1. So they had Do Tune first, and then they made the prequel WWI. He had a degree in business administration. An American exchange student in Italy was complaining about the coffee. "Why are the cups so small?" I asked for a large coffee and they gave me this tiny thing. I explained it was an espresso. He said, "I don't care what it's called. In America, a large coffee is a bucket you can sip on for an hour. This is a rip-off. It's barely one sip." A man on the subway was telling his friend that he doesn't believe in germs. He said it's a scam invented by soap companies. If you can't see it, it can't hurt you. I never wash my hands and I'm perfectly healthy. It's called having a natural immune system. He then proceeded to lick the subway pole to prove his point. I had to explain to my 26-year-old sister that she couldn't get pregnant from a swimming pool. She was worried because a boy she liked was in the same pool. She thought that's what swimmers meant in a biological context. Our mother had apparently told her this to scare her, and she had believed it her entire life.